Hi, welcome to valuationpodcast.com, a podcast and video series about all things related to business and valuation. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I provide online divorce mediation and valuation services in St. Louis, Missouri. Today, we will discuss preserving a family business when the owners divorce with Bob Boyd. He's a divorce lawyer in Atlanta. He's also the co-founder of Boyd, Collar, Nolen, Tuggle, and Roddenbery, and is a leader in family law who has received recognition from his colleagues across Georgia and the nation for his work in high net worth divorce litigation and contested custody cases. Everybody kind of gets a little emotional about the business, but realistically, there is a process to go about valuing the business or looking at it in the court context. And you talked about settling too. So there's a lot of options for the couple. But what are some of your first recommendations to the business owner on how to move forward in the divorce, either talking to the spouse or just in general? What are some steps?
Well, I will tell you, the first thing I tell them is, I don't mean to sound kind of trite, but I say, do not let the tail wag the dog. In other words, don't let the divorce cause you to make business decisions that you would not otherwise normally make. Some people get into this mode of, oh, okay, I'm going to do whatever I can to undervalue the business, etc. That is just not a good plan for anybody. So that's the first thing that I tell them. The second thing that I do is that, okay, if you want to keep the business, we're in the legal system. We're going to have a reputable person come in and do a valuation. And then I tell them we've got two options for that. One, I can go to your spouse's lawyer and see if we can agree on a neutral appraiser. Or we can just go out and hire our own appraiser to do a valuation. But that's where you're going to start. You're going to hire a valuation expert with all the credentials, hopefully somebody that has experience valuing businesses of this type, and start that process. And I tell them, lastly, don't play hide the ball with your records. You've got to have an open book. You've got to have accurate information, because that's the only way, if we end up in court, that we're going to have a valuation that we can support.
Well, and I think that, business owners always get a little concerned when somebody's going to be looking at my financial records. But the reality is most small business owners do run some personal items, through their company. It's completely normal. And a lot of times people aren't coming in to look at your financials to be like, oh, you did something bad in your tax return. They're just looking at, like, historically, how has this money been available to the couple, to the family, and then what does it mean to the value, right?
That's right. I mean, it's not like in the typical, and you know as well as I do, Melissa, that you see the outliers. You're always going to see the outliers. But in most situations, kind of if you go, under the bell curve, so to speak, under the broad part, if people have been running personal expenses through the business, which most of them do, both spouses have benefited. And it's not in anyone's interest to try to be a whistleblower and to try to cause problems. It's just you recognize that as part of the value of the business. And a good valuation expert will let both sides know about it. But you can't be afraid of that. And that's one of the parts of the education that you have to let the business owner, particularly the small business owner, understand.
Right. And you talked a little bit about how each side could hire an expert. And sometimes those are kind of dueling experts, right? Depending upon who you've hired, there are obviously hired guns and things like that. But in general, what about hiring one expert for both sides? Do you consider that? Do you offer it?
I like to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I like to do that.
Tell us a little bit more about how that works.
Well, but let me just say something going into that. I think if truth be told, and you had two really good experts looking at the same data, their valuation's not going to be that far off.
Right.
They might have a few, discount rates that's a little different, but they're not going to be that far off. But I will tell you, it's becoming more common in my practice for us to use a neutral valuation person, because I don't know, St. Louis is probably a lot like Atlanta. There are a lot of valuation experts, but there are only a few that I'll hire.
Right.
And you can get a person that you know is going to come in and do a good job, and it's going to be a reasonable number. And you can tell your client this is going to be a professional valuation that you can rely on, and that you can make decisions going forward based upon it. I like using the neutral.